So, hello everybody. Today I'm going to do an on-camera session 0 for Through Sunken Lands, preparing for a solo adventure with 2 characters. Now, for those of you who don't know what Sunken Lands is, you can either go and watch my other videos. I still haven't received the full printout of the full print-on-demand version of the basic rules. I'm still waiting for that. It can take apparently up to 2 months for it to be delivered, which is usually not the case. Usually it's way faster, but at the moment there's nothing doing. It's still somewhere en route and also, of course, not trackable. So I actually went ahead and printed off the short version of the rules. Short version meaning that I did not include the player books and the scenario packs in the printout, because obviously you pay by the page when you have this printed like this. And of course the difference would have been like 30 euros for this printout versus 50 euros. So I basically went for the cheaper option because I don't want to read the rules. I mean, I've read most of the rules online already, but I really like having books. I'm old school and I spend a lot of time every day looking at my screen and reading stuff on screen for my work, and I don't want to do this in my spare time. So, what is Through Sunken Lands? Through Sunken Lands and Other Adventures is from Flatland Games, and it is an old school Renaissance type game, which is very similar in many mechanical ways to Beyond the Wall and Other Adventures, which was released in 2013 by the same company. And of course, since then, we've had very many updates and very many supplements for this system. Now, the difference between the two is that Through Sunken Lands is a sword and sorcery type game. Now, what is sword and sorcery? Sword and sorcery is a term that was coined probably for the first time as such by Fritz Leiber, or Fritz Lieber, depending on how you want to pronounce his name. Although, of course, there may be people who dispute this, but he's quite often cited as the person who first coined the phrase. Sword and sorcery is a type of fantasy genre that is that you would, for example, see in Conan. I think Conan the Barbarian, Conan the Cimmerian by Robert E. Howard is probably the most iconic type of sword and sorcery personality. Of course, Robert E. Howard also wrote the stories of Kull, King Kull, who's also a sword and sorcery hero. And basically, when you compare it to different other fantasy genres, like, for example, high fantasy, Tolkienian fantasy, or the fantasy that you would find in games like Dungeons and Dragons, the difference is that it's not so much based on the big struggle between good and evil, as you would find it in The Lord of the Rings, for example, but it's a lot more centered around the individual and its struggle against either society, in the case of the barbarian who comes to the civilized world and then has to struggle with the fact that suddenly he is surrounded by people who have laws which are not necessarily natural laws, but have been created over time and may actually be weird and maybe even very unfair, whereas the barbarian way is, of course, according to Conan, where it's survival of the fittest. It's not the rule of law, but it's the rule of the sword, but it is, in a way, to him at least, a lot more, let's say, fair. It is quite often at the core an anti-hero that you're seeing, so somebody who isn't necessarily good, a barbarian that basically lives by the sword and goes around raping and pillaging isn't a good person as we would define them to be, because they're definitely not lawful according to our code of law, but according to maybe their code of law, they are, because they are following their own ideas. They're following what the clan dictates. And they're a lot closer to nature. So that would be the biggest, basically basic Conan dichotomy, barbarianism versus civilization. And maybe there are games that actually play it as such, but Through Sunken Lands isn't. It's a lot more nuanced. And if you would like to get a taste of what a game story in Through Sunken Lands could be like, I would advise you to check out Fritz Leiber's Langmar stories centered around Fafard and the Grey Mouser. So Fafard is actually an 18-year-old barbarian male, a really lovely chap, and I really mean it. And the Grey Mouser is a thief, and the two of them meet under very interesting circumstances in a story called Ill Met in Langmar. And the two of them are basically destined to be together and go through all of these adventures and, you know, fight. Probably a good fight, but I mean, one of them is a thief, so they're not necessarily lawful good, because they're thieves. They take from other people. Of course, in Langmar there's a thieves guild, and of course they have all kinds of rules. Fafard actually comes from the north, from a tribe of snow barbarians, and he's very much under the thumb of his mother and his wife-to-be when he runs away. In a very interesting story, which I really enjoyed reading. It's called The Snow Women, and it's, I believe, the first story that was written. That is then, so basically that's the introduction of Fafard, and then you get the next story, which is the introduction of the Grey Mouser, and then you get Ill Met in Langmar, where the two of them meet in the city of Langmar, and lots of things happen there. But basically, it's heroic fantasy. It's the struggle of the individual or a group of individuals against life on the one hand, but also against things like tyranny. Slavers are often found to be the opponents of people in such heroic fantasy stories. And another thing that is very important is magic is present, but it's always very, very dangerous. Very dangerous indeed. And it's also frowned upon, and it is something that instills fear in people. It's not widely available. And even using it can be very, very dangerous to the caster. And for example, in this game, there are cantrips, but cantrips are the most dangerous form of magic that you can possibly use. And quite often the people who are the opponents of the heroes in heroic sword and sorcery are people who have managed to harness some form of magic and use it to destroy other people's lives. That doesn't mean that you can't play magic users in this game setting, but you know, it's not even about rolling on a wild magic table every so often. Magic here has dire consequences. To me, it quite often reminds me of the Dark Sun setting for AD&D, where actually magic, when you cast it, takes out the life force from the world, from the earth, from the literal earth, and defiles it. So it's not as bad in here, but if you want to know what sword and sorcery would be like in D&D, the old AD&D setting, Dark Sun, is probably most like it. Also, you usually play humans because it's a human-centric world, and the era in which it's played is basically the Iron Age, late Bronze Age, early Iron Age. Think of classical Greece, think of Mesopotamia, Assyria, Babylonia. These would be the kinds of cultures you would be encountering, and the kind of level of technology, but also the level of government you would have. So you wouldn't have a feudal society, a medieval society. You wouldn't have knights like you have them in let's say, Pendragon would be an example of medieval fantasy, or of course D&D is a feudal fantasy world usually, except for Dark Sun, which is a different setting, and the world is quite often described as being old and young at the same time. Young in terms of technical advancements and political situations, because we're talking about a time that is removed by 2.5 centuries from our time now. So 400 BC, 300 BC. Well, yeah, 400 BC, yeah. And old at the same time because the world is strewn with ruins of ancient civilizations, which are often referred to as eldritch civilizations. So they're somehow horrific. There is some kind of underlying horror there. And sometimes you also have cosmic horror, which is of a more Lovecraftian ilk, if you like. So that would be what you're looking at here. That doesn't mean that it's dark, that there is no fun, that there is no happiness. That's not the case at all. So, for example, if you are looking for inspiration as well, if you're trying to create adventures for this, you could also look to RuneQuest by Chaosium, and you have a plethora of adventures that have been published, and also source books that you could use for inspiration, or even to take those adventures and place them in here. So, enough of a preamble. What we're going to do is we're going to start by creating characters. And in the spirit of Fafard and the Grey Mouser, we are going to create 2 characters, because we want to have 2 characters playing in our little mini campaign or adventure that we're going to play and trying to play solo. One is the licensed rogue and one is the barbaric conqueror. So we've got Fafard and his Grey Mouser friend. Of course, we're going to play girls because I'm a girl, so I like to play girls. And we're going to start with the character creation. So how this works is, and I've already done a video on the character creation, so I'm just recapping quite quickly how this works. It's all done by dice rolling. You choose the playbook, i.e. the class that you want to play, and then everything else is left to the die roll, except for one time each player in the character creation process has the right to say, I'm not happy with this one die roll, I want to exchange the result for something else. But you can only do this once. Okay, so, and for those of you who go, oh, is this even viable? Does this make sense? Does this work? I can tell you, and trust me, it does work. We did the same for Beyond the Wall, and we played the same characters for a campaign that lasted 4 years, and that's coming to an end next Saturday, actually, after 4 years of playing. And we've had the same randomly rolled characters for 4 years, and it's been a blast. So we're going to start with the licensed rogue. Characters in this setting start at level 2. And also, there are no skills or traits. You can have them, they are in the book, but they basically tell you not to, and I completely agree. So let's get started. What we have are the basic attributes that we're all familiar with. We have charisma, strength, dexterity, intelligence, wisdom, and constitution. So we all know them. They're all-time favorites. And this is just a note paper because we will increase them over time as we go through the process of creating the character. So this is the rogue. We're going to give her a name later on. So let's just read what it says in the playbook. You've lived in the great city all your life, and the great city is really the starting point. So it is reminiscent of Lankma, of basically the idea that you have the great city, which is ruled, and there is also a description of the great city of Junda, so you can actually take the setting that is described in the book, or you can create your own, but the idea is that, first of all, everybody's level 2, everybody is friends with each other, so this whole thing, oh, how did you meet? Oh, you met in the tavern, you can completely skip this because everybody knows each other already, they have a bond already, which is also established and strengthened during the character creation process, and you basically have decided to band together and become this band of adventurers. And this is also very important. Everybody wants to go on adventure. Everybody wants to make money. Everybody wants to explore. So this is not like, oh, what's my motivation here, coach? This is what you do. You have lived in the great city all your life. Very important. This person comes from the great city. As a child, you looked up to the pickpockets, con men and fences of the guild of licensed thieves. When you were still young, you took your first job and began working your way up the ranks of the great city's most powerful organization, the Thieves' Guild. You now have a full license and important friends. You are agile and charismatic. Your dexterity and charisma begin at 10. So you can already say this. Dexterity 10, charisma 10, and every other value starts at 8. So now, what did your family do in the great city? We roll a d12. We roll a 5. Both of your parents were servants in wealthier houses, which gives us +2 to con. So, and I have actually decided that it makes sense to add what you get and write it down, because if you have to make changes later, if you're unsure why you have a certain level of constitution or whatever attribute, this helps. So it's now at 10. 2 to charisma, it's 12, and +1 to wisdom is 9. Okay, so we've done this. We are now able, and this is what the symbol says, to add a place to the great city. Why is that the case? Because during session 0, not only do you create your character, but you also start building the world. So basically, this is the city of, the great city of, and you can just supply a name. This comes with the book. You can print it off, and you're allowed to print this off, and they ask you to do it. So this is probably the Acropolis. You know, so we're considering this kind of like a Greek-themed, classical Greek-themed metropolis. So this would be the Acropolis. So the wealthy people would probably be living not close to the harbor, because that's where, you know, the harbor people live. But they would also be living close to where the center of power is, which is at the Acropolis. So let's say they are, and of course you can see that this is, I don't know if this comes out, so this is elevated, because Acropolis means top of the polis, top of the city. So they would be living at higher altitudes. They are wealthy, but probably not terribly kind of like completely rich. So I would say we place them here. So this is, and I actually think this is okay and fair enough if you're doing this at the table. When you're doing this online, I would actually, you know, use Legend Keeper, import the map in there that everybody can work on the map at the same time. So we say that this is the house. We're going to give this a number, it's 1. And 1 is the house of now I need a Greek name. Alcibiades. Okay, and this is where his parents were, where her parents work. Okay. So how did you distinguish yourself as a child? Roll a d8. So as you can see, you really need your full polyhedral set, and we get everyone has something to teach you it's an 8. Everyone has something to teach and you learned a little from them all. +1 dex. +1 int. And +1 wisdom. Okay. How did you begin your life of thievery? 1d6. Oh, sorry. You started working for the guild. You become a level 2 rogue. Okay, so we have to read the whole text. You gain the class abilities Fortune's Favor, and Highly Skilled. You learn the skill Stealth. The tables below will further define your class abilities. So, what was your first job? Roll a d6. 1. While still a child, you were paid to sneak into a meeting of wealthy merchants and report on everything that you heard. Actually, it makes sense, I believe, to mark what we rolled, just in case we want to refer back to it. On a 1, while still a child, you were paid to sneak into a meeting of wealthy merchants and report on everything that you heard. So, dexterity +2 makes it a 13. Intelligence +1 makes it a 10. And we get the stealth skill, which we already have. So we'll have to check what happens. Okay, that must be a mistake. Oh, well, that doesn't really help because you have stealth anyway. So we'll have to think about this. Do you get it? Because you can't get stealth twice. Times 2, check, come up with solution. Because obviously, you know, otherwise they would have gotten a different skill in addition to the stealth skill. So either this is a mistake or... yeah, I believe that this is a mistake because otherwise this doesn't help. But you also get to create an NPC. That's what the hand stands for. So we now can choose anyone. We just make up a person that fits this story. So while still a child, you were paid to sneak into a meeting of wealthy merchants. So I'm probably going to design the character, the NPC that made me sneak in. So an NPC, Thieves Guild... elder, who has connections to the merchants. So I'm going to design this person later. And when I say me, in this case, this is actually the player who has to do this. The player gets to design their own NPC. Okay, how did you impress the guild enough to receive your license? 1d6, we rolled a 5. You stole a valuable tome chained to the great library shelves. Okay, 2 int. So we're at 12. And skill, ancient history. Besides the other characters, this is very important, besides the other characters, who is your most valued contact or friend in the great city? 2. One of the dancers who performs on the edge of the great market is a close friend of yours. +2. Dex is 15. She probably asks me to dance a lot with her. +1 equals 11 wisdom. So, I'm a bit confused now because I thought that this is creating persons. Because because this is actually not in the rules, unfortunately. Because it makes more sense to actually create the... yeah, I think this is creating the NPC. So we create mom and pop. NPCs, parents. And this is also an NPC. And this is actually creating the, it has to be the location. Let me just check one thing. No, I was correct. This actually is the symbol for creating an NPC. So we will create a Thieves Guild elder. And this means we can create a place in the city. So we're going to create the market. And we're just going to say that this actually is a very good place for a market, not too far away from the place where, basically not too far away from where the boats would be unloading. Well, this is a huge city, so it's got plenty of harbors, but this would be a very good place. It's also big. Okay, so, and then we have just done this. So this is page 1, page 2, and page 3. Rogue, and page 4, rogue. So we're not done yet. You took a dangerous and lucrative job from the guild and brought along some help. And now this is where the whole banding together and bringing together the player characters with your player character with the others. Because you brought along some help. The player to your right was there with you. You roll a d6 and we rolled a 6. You broke into the inner sanctum of a powerful sorcerer to steal one of his magical tomes. The friend to your right kept watch against his demonic patrols and gains +1 wisdom. So we'll have to make a note because we took our our barbarian friend with us, and she gains +1 wisdom because of this. But we get also +2 wisdom, so we're now at 13. And we get the skill alertness. What stolen treasure is in your possession right now? For a widower's fortune. +2 dex. Whoops. And 60 gold coins. And we get to create a widower that we stole from. And we get to choose their names. We also get to choose their backstory. And they may or may not feature later in the game, but it's just that you basically have created somebody that you work with. And then the rest we will do later, because we will have to wait for whatever it is that our barbarian friend rolls up, because this will influence our scores as well. So let's take a look at our barbarian. The barbaric conqueror of the world, warrior from the edge of the world. Your people live hard lives in hard lands. You grew up among those deemed savages by the rest of the world, but you know that your folk are strong and wise. Now you take to the seas and travel the world. Unburdened by the restraints of civilization, you live by your wits and your sword. You are strong and tough. Your strength and constitution begin at 10. So 10, 10, 8, 8 plus 1, because we get 1 wisdom from our thief friend, and 8 and 8. Okay, so let's get cracking. Unburdened by the restraints of civilization, you live by your wits and your sword. Your strength and constitution are 10, and all other ability scores begin at 8, except for, of course, in this case, the wisdom. So we're going to start with a d12. Where are your ancestral lands? And this becomes important because we will have to draw a world map later. A secluded island. So we already know that in our world, this city is, of course, on the sea. So when we start drawing our world, we already know. Let's say that there is the city here. And we know that it borders an ocean. And we already know that we will have to have an island somewhere, which is where our barbarian lives or comes from. So obviously when you create a world map, I would suggest you use possibly Wonder Draft, for example, to really make this look impressive and basically true to form. But if you don't have Wonder Draft, you can of course use this, and I'm just going to use this as a to basically illustrate how this would work. Okay, so we already know that there is an island inhabited by strong and hardy farmers who protect their flocks with sword and axe. So we get +2 strength. So we're at 12. We get +1 dex, means 9, and +1 charisma, means 9, and we get the skill Animal Can. Okay. How did you distinguish yourself as a child? 1d8. 6. You enjoyed wandering... you never met someone who didn't like you. Okay. +2 charisma is 11. +1 strength is 13. How do you seek glory and conquest? What blade came first into your hand? We roll a d6. You entered the civilized lands led by your blade and a lust for glory. You became a level 2 warrior. You gained the class abilities Nax and weapons specialization. You learn with the skill alertness. That's a weird way of putting this. You learn the skill alertness. The tables below will further define your class abilities. Whoops. There goes my d6. And we rolled a 6. You stood vigil against 100 spirits of the night to earn your blade. You have sworn never to let it go. We get to create an NPC. So first of all, we get +2 con. +1 wisdom. And we get weapon specialization longsword. And now we get to create an NPC that we have to basically make work with this backstory. So that's something that I will have to think about. Possibly we were someone we protected from 100 spirits. I have an idea what this could be. Okay. What caused you to leave your people and come to the great city? 1d6 on a 6. Returning from a hunt, you saw signs of wicked raiders who destroyed your home. You escaped with their wrath, but they did not escape yours. That's a brilliant backstory. +2 equals 10 intelligence, and you get alertness again. Okay. We will have to see what we do about this, because now we already have the same issue that we have alertness twice. We will have to see what if the rules say anything about this, because in the other case we had stealth twice. Besides of the other characters, who is your most valued contact or friend in the great city? D8. 3. And I still think that this is odd, because here you are talking about a friend, but you're supposed to create a place. That doesn't make sense. I still think that this is wrong. This should be creating an NPC, because it doesn't make sense. And also there should not be anything here, because you're not gaining either a place. So I think this is actually wrong. And this is where you create an NPC. And so we're going to create a thief. You have become close friends with a talented thief. So you now know, okay, we're going to change this, because she's already friends with a talented thief. So this is the one where I'm going to pull a no. She also doesn't know a dancer. You've made friends with a warrior from a rival tribe. Yeah, I think she is often fond. She's often found in a seedy inn, so she gets +2 charisma and +1 con. So she's at 13, and I think she gets to create an innkeeper. And I think this is actually incorrect, because you would not be, in neither of these cases do you actually get something tangible. This makes sense that you create a location here. Okay, so what caused you and your friend to be exiled from a city on the southern continent? The player to your right was there with you. Okay, let's roll a d6. 1. Killing there, even in self-defense, was grounds for exile. The friend to your right fought by your side and gains 1 dex. Okay, so our thief gets +1 dex. So she's now at 18. And we get +2 dex. And the knack, great strike. What treasure do you value most? 5, a coffer full of coins and treasure. Okay, +2 int. And 400 plundered silvers. And you don't create a, this is wrong again, why would you create a, you don't create an NPC here either. So, okay. So now we have the base values that we need, and we are going to add them to our sheets. So first of all, we have the class, which is Barbarian, level 2. And we're going to start, the strength is 13. The dex is 11. The constitution is 13. Intelligence is 12. Wisdom is 10. Charisma is 13. That's number 1. The ability score bonus is +1 for strength, +0 for constitution, 13 for dexterity, 13 is a +1, intelligence is a 0, wisdom is a 0, and charisma is a +1. As you can tell, you know, the scores are, the ability modifiers are a lot lower than in 5th edition. Skills are animal ken, class abilities are special strike, long sword, weapon, specialization, alertness, definitely. I'll have to check what alertness actually does. Oh, okay. Having a skill gives your character a +2 to ability scores when making checks. If you have the same skill twice, you get a +4. So it does make sense to have alertness twice or stealth twice. Okay, so alertness. So animal ken would be +2 for a charisma check when you work with animals. So we would be rolling against the 16, and you always roll lower. And then we have alertness twice. This would be a +4. And the question is for what? Perception. That would be wisdom. So that would be perception type changes, roll. So she would be rolling against a 14 or lower. Okay, so that's good. And she has a long sword. She got a blade, didn't she? Okay, so she has a long sword. We also have 4d6 silver on top of the ones that we already have. 3, 8, 12, 18, so we have 418 silver. Longsword and dagger, because we get this as well. It says here, a barbaric conqueror begins with the following equipment: a dagger, your favorite weapon, so in our case that's the longsword, an unquenchable thirst for adventure, a private room in a small inn. Makes sense because we actually know a CD innkeeper, and 46 silvers. Our alignment, your character may be lawful, chaotic, or neutral. If you can't decide, simply choose to be neutral. Yes, I think that makes sense. Your base attack bonus comes from your class. As a level 2 warrior, you have a base attack bonus of 2. And we get a to hit plus 3 because we hit with melee weapons on a plus 1. Plus we have the base attack bonus, so we have to hit 3, and the damage we'll have to find that later. Your initiative is equal to your level plus your dexterity bonus plus 1 for being a warrior, so our level is 2. We have no bonuses in dexterity, so we get a 3 on the initiative. Your armor class is 10 plus your dexterity bonus. So at the moment our armor class is basically 10. We don't have any equipment that would enhance this. Our fortune points are 3. Your hit points are 10 plus your constitution bonus to start. So that's 10 plus 1 is 11. And then we roll a d10. Gonna make a note, that's 11 plus a d10, 7 plus our constitution bonus for reaching level 2, so that's constitution, that's 8, so we're at 19. The saving throws we'll do later because I've actually changed them around. Record the to hit and damage statistics for any weapons you think you might use. Your to hit bonus for a melee weapon is your BAB plus your strength. Use your dexterity bonus instead for any missile weapons. Your strength bonus also adds to the damage of any melee weapon. Don't forget your weapon specialization. We'll have to check what this does. Weapon specialization probably means a plus 2. Okay, so basically a weapon specialization means you get a plus 1 to hit and plus 2 to damage while wielding this weapon. So this means we have a plus 4. So we always get a plus 1 to hit, plus 2 damage. So we have a 4. And the damage, whatever a longsword does, Okay, so you use a d8 for damage plus 2. Plus 1, because it's strength. Okay. So the way this works is, in order to see if you hit, you roll a d20, and on a 5 plus 9, you hit anything that has an armor class of 9 or lower. So you want to roll high. If I do hit, then I get to roll a d8, and a 3 plus 2 plus 1, because plus 2, because this is the damage for being proficient. Plus 1 for my strength would mean I do 6 points of damage in this case. Okay. And then we have fortune points 3. Okay, so we have now finished the character creation for our barbarian. So now we're going to work on our thief. So we're a thief. We are level 2. Our strength is 8. Our dexterity is 18. Our intelligence is 12. Our wisdom is 13. And our constitution is 10. Sorry, our intelligence is 12. Our wisdom is 13. And our constitution. Okay, let's do this again. Our charisma is 12. Our strength is 8. Our dex is 18. Our con is 10. Our intelligence is 12. And our wisdom is 13. So first of all, we're going to add our bonuses. The licensed rogue begins with the following equipment: a dagger, many types of clothing, leather armor, a weapon of our choice, thieves' tools, nice rooms at an inn, a mark of membership of the guild, and 4d6 silvers. Okay, so let's take a look. We have Fortune's favor. We'll have to find out what that does. We have stealth times 2, so it means that every time we roll a dexterity plus 4. So stealth is plus 4 for us. We are highly skilled, whatever that means. And we have ancient history. Let's take a look. We get a -1 on strength saves. we get a dexterity +3. So we really want to use ranged weapons. Constitution is 10, so that's a 0. Intelligence is 12, that's a 0. Wisdom is +1. Charisma is 0. Okay, so we will take a ranged weapon. Let's see what we have there. I think it's going to be a short bow because long bows would be too kind of like, that's too big to wield in a city. So we have a short bow. Which is a plus, our base attack bonus is 2. No, actually we have a base attack bonus of 1 because it comes from our class. At a level 2 we have a +1, so we get a base attack bonus our melee is +1 to hit, and we have a plus your strength bonus, which means a +0 at the moment. So we don't get any pluses when we hit with our dagger. We just roll a straight up d20. And for the short bow, it's +1 plus our dex, so that's a +4. And our damage with the dagger is a -1 because of our strength bonus. And it's a d6 that we roll for a it's just a d6 for the damage with the bow. Okay. Fortune's favor means we get 5 fortune points. We have leather armor, which gives us a +2 to our armor class. Armor class is 10 plus your dexterity bonus, so that's 13. Plus our leathers gives us a 15 armor. We get 8 plus our constitution as a basis for our hit points, +7, that's 15. Okay, which means that we are now done, essentially. What we now need to do is we need to fill in the saving throws. Like I said, I've turned this around, so I'm going to do this off screen, and I also need to create and what is our initiative? Alignment is definitely neutral because we're a thief. Is equal to your level. That's 2 plus dexterity 5 plus 2 for being a rogue, so our initiative is 7. Okay, so now the only thing I need to do is I need to basically find out what okay, rogues receive 2 additional skills at first level. Your playbook has already given you your extra skills. Rogues gain an additional skill every odd number. I did. Stealth twice and ancient history. Okay. Okay, so essentially this means we are done. Now I only have to pick names, and then we are ready to create the world using the rules from somewhere here called Beyond the Wall, Further Afield, because you can use this as well with through Sunken Lands. Okay, so then we'll see how that goes. Talk to you soon. Bye.